Welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, Episode 2. I'm Laura, and you can find me on Ravelry as Fluffy K, Twitter and Instagram as Fluffy Kira, and I also blog at the Corner of Knit and Tea. This episode's show notes will be at the Corner of Knit and Tea, and there will be a link to that on YouTube. The show notes will include links to anything I talk about today. You can also find all of my projects on my projects page on Ravelry, all of the knitting that I show you today, and all of my spinning is recorded in my Handspun tab on Ravelry, which is, again, Fluffy K. So welcome back to episode 2. Thank you to everyone who watched last week and for all your kind comments and encouragement and enthusiastic support. I'm excited to come back and do another episode. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, welcome. I'm a work in progress and I'm just kind of feeling my way through this. So let's begin today's episode. Today I am sampling a tea. It is a little cool today, a little overcast, so I decided to go with hot tea today. I am drinking in my Hoops and Yo-Yo mug. On that side it says, "Hey cutie, could I get a refill?" Piddles is also inside holding a balloon, but I can't show him to you because there's tea in here. So today's tea is a root beer float tea from David's Teas. I have not reviewed it on my blog. It is a sample that came with a couple of my orders. Let's see if I can show this to you without too much glare. It is root beer float, and it includes cinnamon, black tea, white chocolate, sarsaparilla, and vanilla. So anyway, you can certainly buy this. I think it's interesting. I probably need to put a little bit of sweetener in it. I tend to like things really, really sweet. So don't listen to me if you don't like flavored teas or sweet tea. Anyway, so that's today's tea. I guess we'll move right along and get into the knitting. The first thing I have to show you is a finished object. We talked about this last week. The pattern is Little Sister Dress, and it's by Tara Froseth Designs, and I'm not going to show it to you on the tablet because I have the finished one. I knit this one in the 12-month size, and it's a teal, which is of course my favorite. And then I have these cute little elephant buttons that I got from someone on Etsy on the side. Again, I said I knit this in the 12-month size. I believe I used size 2 needles, although all of that information is on the project page on Ravelry. And the yarn is Knit Pick Stroll, and it's in, I think it's called Blue Topaz. The other thing that I talked about last week was, as I knit this dress for my niece, and I hope she'll be able to wear it for a while, I wanted to knit her some little leg warmers to go with the dress. I'm about halfway done with that. I have one done and the other is not done, but I'll show you the finished one. I used Knit Picks Felici in the Splash colorway for these, and I used Alana Dacos's Leg Warmies pattern. That's a free pattern on Ravelry. And basically what I did was I cast on a certain number and then I just knit in the round, and I've got cute little leg warmies, and as I had hoped, it would sort of contrast / match the dress. And I have the second one started. I need to finish it up before I go up there. As you can see, I'm rocking right through it, but I haven't gotten too far. I am trying to make them match, although I was a few rows off in the white at the bottom, so they won't quite match. But I think that'll probably be okay anyway. I don't even know how long she'll be able to wear these, because she's growing like a bean. Anyway, so those are two of my finished objects, or a finished object and a soon-to-be finished object. I won't be able to show you these finished because I'm going to be going up to Chicago this week. So hopefully I'll get a picture of Roxy in her new wares, and I will go ahead and show you that when I return. I guess I sort of skipped ahead. What I'm wearing. I am wearing a hitchhiker shawl. It is a pattern by Martina Bem. It costs, I believe, $6 on Ravelry. And I knit mine out of Woolmize in the pure base, which is 100% superwash merino. And the colorway, I'll probably butcher this, is Wichtelwatzer. And the pattern is just a pretty easy garter stitch back and forth, and then it creates these cute little teeth at the bottom. And the pattern suggests how long you knit for, but this is really one of those patterns where you can knit until you run out of yarn. And given that Woolmize is such a generous skein, I think the pattern was written with a skein of Woolmize and called for 42 teeth. I think I got up to, that's what she calls these jagged edges, the teeth. And I want to say I got up into the 50s before I quit, but I just wanted to use every last inch of the yarn, and I really like a wide shawl. This one can be worn a variety of ways. I usually like to wear shawls like this, kind of bandana-like around my neck. And they're just great for fall or even summer when it's a little chilly in the office. And I just love the colors. There's, like I showed you, there's teal, there's a brown, there's kind of a, well, there's black, and then there's kind of a reddish pink, and where it meets the blue, it kind of gets into purple a little bit sometimes. It's kind of hard to tell on the monitor. And it just kind of does some cool pooling in this. So I would recommend this knit. It's great for variegated skeins. And you can kind of do it with any length. Even if you have a shorter skein at 350 yards, you'll just have a somewhat shorter scarf, and you could also bump it up a needle size or two, and that might give you, you can aggressively block it. I don't think I blocked this super aggressively because I had so much of it anyway. So that's what I'm wearing today. Again, that link will be in the pattern notes, or the show notes on the corner of Knit and Tea. The next project that I have almost finished is actually kind of a surprise. I didn't talk about this last week because I didn't know I was going to knit it last week. My friend Anna has made this adorable felted bag, and I looked at it and was like, oh, I really need one of those for my travel next week. And because I'm kind of crazy, I decided, oh, hey, let's just cast on a bag and knit a bag and we'll felt it, and then I can use it on my travel next week. I know, I'm a little crazy. So this week I have been spending most of my time knitting this bag. The pattern is, let me just pull it up on the tablet. The pattern is the French Market Bag by Polly Ootwaite. I think I probably butchered her last name. It's on knitty.com, so it's a free pattern. And I have a picture here for you of what it's supposed to look like. She suggests about 400 yards of scraps, using kind of anything you've got in a wool that will felt. So I actually had, oh, I forgot the label. I actually had a bunch of different colors of Webb's house yarn line. It's called Valley Yarns, and their worsted weight is Northampton, and it's 100% wool, so it will felt. I've also knitted it into sweaters. It's a really nice workhorse yarn. It's a bit of an alternative to Cascade 220, which I find tends to run a little thin on the worsted side, and I wanted something kind of thicker and plumper. Anyway, I had 3 skeins. One colorway was Pacific Teal, one was Green Apple, and then I used just a little bit of Eggplant to kind of finish it off. So this is going to look kind of huge because I still need to felt it, but this is my new French Market Bag. And the deal is that what I'm going to do is stick it in the washing machine on hot tonight, and try and agitate it quite a bit. And the fabric will do exactly what you would not want to do to most of your wool sweaters. It will shrink down, and it will get kind of denser and thicker as the fibers kind of mat together. And that's a process called felting. So when I'm done, I will have a bag out of this sturdy felted fabric. Same colorways, it'll just get a little bit less stitch definition because you can see that right now. And this is a great technique if you want to make, I've made slippers with it, I've made a couple bags. There are a bunch of nice things that you can do just using this slightly heavier fabric. So this is completely knit and the ends are woven in, but again I have to felt it. So I will be doing that tonight, and I will show that to you next time, although it will have already been used once. But I will show that to you next time when it's all completed. So that was another finished object this week. The other 2 things that I showed you last week, the first was a project for Camp Loopy, and that is the, let's see, I have it on paper here. That is the Kraken Cowl. Oh, you know what? I didn't even bring it. That is the Kraken Cowl. It is a double knit cowl. It has a big cephalopod, octopus, whatever you want to call it, kraken on it. And it is double knit, which means you are working a two colors of yarn at the same time, and you're simultaneously creating a front and a back. And when you alternate colors, it will create the pattern in the alternate color. I think I'll be able to show you what I mean by that in just a second. I ordered Cascade 220 Superwash in the colorway teal and charcoal gray. and I ordered that from the Loopy U as part of Camp Loopy. And I've gotten about 16 rows in. The deal is that when you're knitting both the front and back simultaneously, you're knitting double your stitches. So this, I believe, is about almost 300 stitches around to create 150 on the front and 150 on the back. Now you'll kind of be able to see what I mean when I say that you create patterns. What I'm doing is currently I'm knitting with the charcoal on the outside and the teal on the inside, and these are sort of the bottom of the tentacles. And you can see it now with the charcoal as the background and the teal as the tentacles, the picture or graphic on it. If I turn this inside out, what you will see is that on this side, the teal is the background and the charcoal is the pattern. So it's a really neat technique to get basically double-sided fabric. When I'm done with this, I'll be able to wear it either side out. So I kind of have, it's almost like two cowls in one, and they've both got krakens. So that's as far as I am. I expect to do a lot of work on this on the train and on up in Chicago because I'll be doing some babysitting for my niece and she goes to bed pretty early. So that is my progress on this one for Camp Loopy. This has to be done by August 31st, so I hope by the next time I show it to you, I will be much further along. My last project that I talked about last week about casting on was a pair of socks. I've been trying to knit something with sock yarn every month for Kate over at Stitch Addiction's Sock Club. And like I said, the goal is to use up 12 skeins of sock yarn and knit 12 pairs of socks during the year. I've modified mine slightly to use 12 skeins of sock yarn, but I'm not necessarily knitting sock objects for everything. But this month I am. So I showed you the sock blank last week. This is something that I dyed at a friend's house, and I used violet, hot fuchsia, fiery red, dark orange, golden yellow, and bright yellow. And you probably can't tell, but I've done just a little bit with the bright yellow. That's the end that I cast on from. I'm knitting these socks 2 at a time on size 1 needles. And as I said, I really did not get very far. I cast on and knit my toes. So these, again, I hope will get lots of work while I'm on the train going up to Chicago and in Chicago. I'll try and get these a little closer so you can see them. I'm knitting these toe up. I haven't decided what heel I'm going to use yet, but the nice thing about knitting socks toe up is that you knit the foot and the heel, and then you just keep knitting the cuffs. And if you want to use up all your yarn, which I really do, you can knit them until you run out of yarn. If you knit them the other way around, you kind of have to guesstimate, and then when you get down towards the toes, there's always that, uh-oh, am I going to have enough yarn? Am I going to have too much? What am I going to do? And I really didn't want leftovers. So again, I'm knitting these 2 at a time on one large circular needle, size 1, and I believe that's US 2.25 millimeters. I'm sorry, the size is US 1, and then it's 2.25 millimeters, and that is my sock blank and my little itty bitty toes. And I hope by the next time I show these to you, I'm at least up to the cuff, because otherwise I'm going to have a problem finishing these in August. So that pretty much covers the knitting section for now. I've been keeping myself busy trying to finish off all the things I need before I travel, and I hope that I will get some good work in on these projects on the train and again while I'm babysitting my niece, because she goes to bed about 6:30 in the evening, so I should have several evenings to just sit and knit as well while I visit with my sister and while I send them out on some dates so that I can babysit. So next up I have my spinning. Last week, I do have a couple finished spins. Last week I showed you a bobbin of Hello yarn. It was a merino silk in Sinister Gray Mists, and I had finished spinning the singles, but I had not plied it. And last Sunday evening I went back and I plied it, and I'm super proud of this spin. It ended up being 4.1 ounces, and I ended up getting about 350 yards, which makes it kind of a heavy sport, or a light sport or a heavy fingering. And you can see that the fiber was blues and grays and some browns, and I got a nice tight ply, and I'm really, really happy with this skein. So this is actually available in my shop if you're interested. All the details are up there. They are also on my Handspun projects page on Ravelry. I also talked last week about Kim and Sam's Come Knit With Us and how they are hosting a Whippapalooza extravaganza-thon for the next 2 months, which is to pick up items that have been languishing in your projects, or in my case, in my spins, and finish them up. One of the things that I decided to do with this was I have some skeins that I spun when I was an early spinner, and they weren't plied as nicely as I wanted them to be, so I really wanted to run them through the wheel again and reply them and kind of tighten them up and see if it would make them a more usable yarn. So I showed you last week the skein that I had in question, and the deal is that it was about 8 ounces of fiber. I call it scrappies because it was leftovers of things that I had plied before and had just a little bit left over here and a little bit left over here. And after maybe a year of spinning, I plied them all together into one big skein. And it looked like this. And my concern was that it wasn't as nice and tightly plied as some of the other things that I do. And so I really, really wanted to kind of run that through again and tighten it up and see what could happen. Now, when I opened that skein up, I discovered it was actually 2 skeins, I guess because my wheel is, my bobbins only hold between 5 and 6 ounces. I had divided it up into 2 skeins when I had spun it and plied it. And so I wound both of them up into cakes, and I only got through one this week. As you can see, this was the original. Again, you can kind of see that it's pretty loosely plied. This is all caked up using my ball winder, and what I will do is, hopefully this evening or tomorrow, I will go ahead and start from here, from the end, and run that through my wheel again and reply it to make it tighter. But I do have one skein to show you because I finished the first skein, and this is what the yarn looks like now. And I don't know how much of a difference you can tell. I will try and show you these two side by side. But as you can see, this is a much tighter ply now, and I really think it came out much better. I think I'll be able to use it for things. There are still a lot of inconsistencies in this yarn. It doesn't make this yarn perfect. I do have a few areas where it was still too hard to ply it super tight. You can see that one right there is a very loosely spun single, and it's kind of coming apart, and so I could still spin it together. The other areas are I was having a real problem when I was adding a new single. So I have a whole bunch of these little blips and bumps where I was adding new singles because I hadn't yet learned how to sort of tuck it in. Anyway, so I suspect that I will still cut a few parts of this yarn away, but I have a couple projects in mind for it and that use small amounts of hand spun. And so I really believe that I'll be able to use this much better. And I'm super pleased with how it came out. And I love how it shows all the bright colors together. And I can't wait to knit from it, and once I see if the project that I want to do with it works, I will definitely show you some of the results from that. So that brings me to what I spun this week. Last week I showed you a braid, and I said it was from Prairie House Fibers, and it didn't have a name. It was merino, and it had pinks and oranges and browns, and I was calling it Hot Hues because I wanted to spin it for one of the groups that I'm in hosts monthly spin-alongs, and the crafting prompt for August was Hot Hues, and so I really, really wanted to participate in that, and it was a good chance to pick something out of my stash. So what I decided to do today is, last week I showed you the single still on the bobbin, and while it looked really pretty, I spoke last week, particularly when I was talking about the scrappies and things, about how I don't ply from 2 bobbins anymore. So generally what I do now is I spin all of my singles onto 1 bobbin. And then when I'm done, I take the bobbin into my craft room, which is where I am now, and I put the bobbin on a Lazy Kate, and I go ahead and wind the singles off into a center pole ball. So this is what it looks like. The reason I do this is because then I can ply from the string at the center of the ball, and I can also ply holding the other half from the outside of the ball. And I can ply these 2 strands together in a 2-ply, and I use up every last bit of singles because at the end, when I hit whatever the center is between those 2 points, I just end up with a little loop right where the center meets. And so I never have any extras left over, which I really like, particularly if I'm spinning something to sell, because I want to use every last bit of the fiber to get as much as I can in terms of yardage so that it will be useful for a bigger project. So I just thought I'd show you. This is a plying ball. Like I said, I'll go out and sit at my wheel. So it'll probably take me about 2 hours to ply up tonight. And I hope I'll be able to do that and also finish this ball so that next week I'll be able to show you these finished. So that brings me to the very last part of this spinning segment, which is what I'm going to spin next. After I finish plying those two, which I hope will be tonight, but might be tomorrow, it's time to pick another braid. And I have pulled a whole bunch of braids aside that I wanted to spin in the next several weeks. And so I just went and picked one out of the bin today. And this is dyed by 2If by Hand, which is one of my favorite fiber dyers. And the dyers are Jalon and Mighty. I can't remember how to pronounce it. And they dye just fabulous fiber. And their shop is linked in the show notes as well. And this braid is called Roxy. This is pinks and reds on mixed BFL. BFL is blue-faced Leicester. It's a type of wool. It's a fairly long stapled wool and it has a little bit of shimmer to it. I really like spinning BFL. I think it's pretty soft. It's not super scratchy and it just spins up really nicely. It's also a great fiber for beginners because since it has a long staple, it's pretty easy to spread out and spin when you're drafting. What I was going to say is this is mixed BFL, and if you're not familiar with fibers, most fibers come in a natural tone. Usually it's a cream color, and then dyers go ahead and dye over that, or you can spin it in its natural state. Mixed BFL comes when you pull usually kind of a white or cream colored fleece and you blend it with gray. And I believe that this is what the mixed BFL looks like, this kind of gray portion here, before you lay dye over it. I don't believe anything has been done to this section. One of the things I like about mixed BFL is it lends itself to a darker braid because it has darker parts, and it also gives you a lot of variation in the colors. For instance, over here you can see lots of variation in where the dark streaks are and the light streaks. And I just really like that because it ends up giving you a lot of texture when you spin it up. This one, I think, actually, I'm going to spin up as singles because I found a pattern that I like that calls for basically lace weight singles to knit a cowl. So I think I'm just going to spin this straight through and it will keep it in large blocks of color. And that means that when I sort of get to the bobbin stage, the finished bobbin, the first time around, I won't actually run it back through to ply it with anything. What I will do is wind it off and then I will lightly felt those singles. Felting is the same process I talked about earlier with the bag, which is I will put it in warm water and add usually hot water and add a little bit of agitation, and that will kind of set the singles at a certain width and make them a little bit easier to knit with. So those are all the segments that I have for you today. We are getting close to 24 minutes, which is about what I did the last time. Unfortunately, I will not be able to tape a segment this coming weekend, which is the 16th and the 17th. I will be in Chicago and I will not be getting back until very late Sunday night, so I don't believe I'll have time to tape anything before Monday. So I will join you again probably the following weekend, which will be the 23rd and 24th. I will tape something for you, hopefully because it'll be 2 weeks. I'll have lots of progress and lots of things to show you. And until then, I hope you have a great week. 2 weeks actually. Happy spinning, happy knitting, and I can't wait to see you until next time. Bye!